Two of the most popular types of accounts here in the UK that we can use to invest our money and grow our investments completely tax-free are stocks and shares ISAs and self-invested personal pensions, or SIPPs. Firstly, SIPPs offer the same great tax benefits as other pensions, but unlike a workplace pension, for example, a SIPP gives you more control over how your money is invested. So with more investment choice and control, you have more investment opportunities and the potential for greater returns. Anyone can open a SIPP, and it can be a great way to save and invest for retirement while minimizing the tax you pay. For example, if you've already made the most of any employer contributions to your workplace pension, you might decide to open a SIPP alongside it. This means you can shelter more money from tax and invest freely while still benefiting from your maximum employer contributions into your workplace pension. Each tax year, you can usually invest up to £60,000 across all your pensions, but the amount you can put in cannot exceed your yearly salary. And also bear in mind that this amount does include your workplace pension as well, if you pay into one. So for example, if your salary is £30,000 and your workplace pension contributions amount to £5,000, you can't pay more than £25,000 into your SIPP. Or if your salary is £60,000 and your workplace pension contribution is £15,000, you cannot contribute more than £45,000 and so on. However, things get interesting once you earn more than £100,000 per year, and I'll explain why later, so keep watching. Most of us probably won't get to invest this much money each year anyway, but it's good to know that we have the option. But what if you were to receive a lump sum of say £80,000 from selling your house perhaps? How would you manage that? Well, that would depend on your yearly salary first of all, and then on the annual SIPP allowance. For instance, if you're earning £70,000 per year, assuming you haven't contributed anything that tax year, the maximum you could put into your SIPP would be £60,000. But if you're earning £40,000, again assuming you haven't already paid anything into your pension pots that tax year, the maximum you could add in is £40,000. One final note here is that those without earned income can still pay in up to £3,600 per year. Now, for anything you pay in, the government also adds a 20% boost in tax relief, even if you don't pay tax. So essentially for every £80 you contribute, you'll get a top up of £20, which is done automatically by the SIPP provider, so you don't need to worry about it. This percentage is the same as the income tax rate for someone paying the basic rate of tax. So basically, any money you put into your SIPP gets your income tax refunded if you earn anywhere in the basic rate of tax, which is between £12,570 to £50,270 per year. And if you pay a higher or additional tax rate, you can claim up to an extra 20 to 25%, but this does have to be claimed back via self-assessment. Let's just make sense of things with an example, which shows how much tax relief you can expect depending on different tax rates. As you can see here, if you're a basic rate taxpayer, for every £1,000 invested into your SIPP, the government tops up with £250. But as you pay more tax, you can claim back a further 20 to 25% more tax. Therefore, it's clear that for higher earners, pensions are clearly an extremely tax-efficient way of investing. But here is where it gets interesting. If you earn between £100,000 and £140 per year, a pension contribution can give you an effective tax relief rate of 66%. Here is how this works as I understand it, but please remember that I am not a tax expert, so verify this information and potential implications of this whole process with your accountant or financial advisor. If you're a higher rate taxpayer, defined as those earning between £50,271 and £125,140 annually, you may be hit by a stealthy 60% tax bill. This is because your personal allowance, which is £12,570, begins to fall when you earn over £100,000. Essentially, your personal allowance is reduced by £1 for every £2 you earn over £100,000. Once you earn £125,140 or more, your allowance disappears entirely. So every £100 you earn between £100,000 and £125,140 is reduced to £40, as you lose an additional $20 via the reduced allowance. Now, one of the best ways to avoid 60% tax is to pay into a pension or increase your payments if you're already contributing. By paying more into a pension, you reduce your adjusted net income, which is the income that HMRC uses to calculate the charge, and can either reduce the amount of personal allowance you lose or even reinstate it fully if your income falls to £100,000 or less. So in practical terms, making a pension contribution with higher rate tax relief is like getting a boost of around 66% on the amount you pay in. Why 66% when higher rate tax is only 40%? This is because, for instance, if you pay 40% tax on £100, it is reduced to £60. But if you then pay that £60 into a pension, the income tax is repaid, making it up to £100 again. And £60 turned into £100 is an increase of roughly 66%. So in terms of value for money, high rate pension contributions really are hard to beat. But as I said earlier, make sure to ask your financial advisor about how this works exactly. Now, money in a pension is meant for your retirement, so you can't usually take the money out until you reach 55, although this is due to rise to 57 from April 2028. At that point, you can usually take out up to 25% of your total investment pot, or a maximum of $268,275 as tax-free cash, and anything above that will be taxed as income. If you don't want to take this money in one go, you can make smaller ongoing withdrawals until you've used up your tax-free cash, and then any further withdrawals will be taxed as income. One thing that I really like about SIPPs is that they can help you organize your other pensions. As most people are likely to work for several employers during their careers, they will be accumulating different company pensions along the way. So bringing them under one roof can give you a clearer picture of your overall retirement savings and whether you're on track to achieve your goals. Consolidating your pensions in a SIPP early on can save on paperwork later in life and ensure you don't lose track of pensions as you grow older. It can also give you more control over your overall strategy and costs. There are even more SIPP rules to know about, but I think this is already complicated and confusing enough, so I'll stop here. Just quickly before we move on, if you're enjoying this video, there is a simple way to support this channel, and that's by clicking the subscribe button. It really does help small UK-based channels like mine. Thank you. And then a stocks and shares ISA is another tax-efficient way to invest and grow your money. You can pay in up to £20,000 in total across all your ISAs each tax year. But the main advantage of an ISA is that it's more flexible than a SIPP. It's a great option for those looking to save and invest for the future tax-free, while being able to make withdrawals tax-free whenever you like. However, it's worth mentioning that if you take money out of a non-flexible ISA to then put it back in the same financial year, it will count as a new payment towards your annual limit of £20,000. So be careful in that regard. Now remember that stocks and shares ISAs are best to invest in for the long term. So money inside it should just be left alone to compound over time. And you shouldn't take it out unless you really have to. So SIPPs and ISAs are both tax efficient savings vehicles. But there are some important differences which I've put in this table. As mentioned earlier, money in a SIPP is locked away until at least age 55. Whereas you can draw money from ISAs whenever you like. And whereas SIPP contributions earn tax relief, ISA contributions do not. On the flip side, you won't be taxed when you take money out of your ISA, but SIPPs are taxed on the way out once you reach that cap. Let's run through a few real-world scenarios to see how much these two accounts differ during a long-term investor's journey. Say Alice invests £400 per month into a SIPP and Ben invests £400 into a stocks and shares ISA. They both invest for 30 years and get a return of 8% per year. And at the end of this period, their investment pots will look like this. Ben has accumulated £600,518, all tax-free, but Alice has £720,621, as she was paying in £400, which got topped up with £80 or 20% per month by the government, making her investments £480 per month. Now, as I said earlier, 25% or £180,000 of Alice's investments are tax-free, but she will need to pay tax on the rest as she draws that down. And if Alice stays within the basic tax rate of income during her retirement, which is 20%, that would mean that 20% of the taxable income comes out to £108,000. So for argument's sake, if you were to remove this amount from the total portfolio value, Alice would still be left with more than the ISA investor. But which one is best then? Personally, I think that the main benefit of a SIPP is that given you can't touch it until you're 55, it will stop you from tinkering with your investments and taking money out whenever the stock market goes through a turbulent period. In other words, it will protect you from yourself and ensure you stay committed to your long-term goals. So it's ideal for those who can't easily control their emotions and might be tempted to sell their investments at the wrong time, costing them money in the process. And of course, SIPPs really do become very useful once you start earning a lot of money, as you saw from the earlier examples. On the other hand, the benefit with the ISAs, at least for me, is that they're flexible and let you withdraw the money at any time. But their flexibility also means that you can mess up at any time if your emotions get in the way. So that's something to consider. So I think that the choice of one or the other will depend on your investment goals too. And by the way, there isn't anything stopping you from opening both. In the end, the way you manage your finances is personal. But here is the thing with stocks and shares ISAs. As good as they are for helping us grow our investments tax-free over the long term, there are certain things about them that many people aren't aware of. So watch this video next to learn about 6 key things that no one tells you about stocks and shares ISAs. Things that can be extremely costly if you get wrong.